you reduced it down to being ill-advised. And I attempted to draw the nexus between that letter and his subsequent sacking. I believe that's where we are. You can take it up.
Until today, I never knew about the exchange between the Secretary to Cabinet and Mr. Kua. I wouldn't say until today. I think it was first brought to my attention by the investigators who first asked me whether I was aware of that. So I wasn't aware of that exchange at the time. And to be honest, it's not a surprise that I wasn't aware, simply because I had other more important things to do again at the time. So I was making efficient use of my time. But secondly, I was always under the impression that Mr. Mamadi Kurung's removal was based on my recommendation to His Excellency the President at the time, because he had irreconcilable differences with not just the lead counsel, but also the commissioners. Explicitly told me that they could no longer work with him.
When you say explicitly, do you mean they wrote to you?
No, we had a meeting in my office with all three of them, and I was specific in my question because I wanted to be sure whether they could continue to work with him. I knew that his letter, which by the way I believe was not addressed to me but to His Excellency the President, his appointing authority, but copied to me, I think. Given the nature of the allegations contained in that letter, I knew that it was next to impossible for him to continue to work in the same environment with lead counsel. It was clear for me. He had crossed a certain line in terms of his allegations, and he couldn't substantiate those. So I met with lead counsel, of course. I met with Mr. Kua and the commissioners. It was on that, with that in mind, that I went to see His Excellency the President. So all along, I had assumed that that removal was premised on my exchanges with the commissioners, counsel, Mr. Kwang himself, and His Excellency the President.
That's fair enough to you, if I'm honest. However, you can see what this committee is grappling with. It seems that the reasons why Mr. Kurang was sacked is because he did not heed to instructions from cabinet.
I'm not sure that I would agree with that, because otherwise he would have been sacked before I actually went to see His Excellency on his case. So I wonder why he wasn't sacked up until that point.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, if the reason that you were preferring for his sacking was based on his relationship with the President's office, in particular the Office of the Secretary General, then I'm wondering why he wasn't sacked soon after the relationship went south. That it had to take my intervention at the level of His Excellency the President for him to be sacked at that point. Not sacked, but for him to be removed from his, relieved of his duties at that point. So I'm just saying, I wonder whether that would really be the reason.
Well, from the evidence we have before this committee, or rather the evidence that was provided to the committee, it was in fact said to the committee by Mr. Cisse that was, well, he did not say it in these words, but that was the beginning of the end for Mr. Kura.
I wasn't even aware of the exchanges between Mr. Kuang and Mr. Sisi at all.
Okay. All right. So it is clear eventually he was sacked.
He was relieved of his duties
Okay.
as secretary.
I prefer that as well. He was relieved of his duties. So the rationale for relieving him of his duties, we've looked at State House's rationale as put to us by Mr. Ibrahim Asise, which is the ill-advised version. Now the advised version, the properly advised version, let's say that the working relationship had soured beyond repair. Let's look into the petition. Honorable Chair, RS 69. If the Secretariat could assist the witness with RS 69. Is that the document you refer to when you refer to the petition?
And what I have here, RS 69, is a letter from Amiben Suda addressed to me and to the chairman of the commission.
I see. Well, that's the response to the
Petition.
Yes, okay. Well, in the meantime, we look for the counterpart, the initial letter, which is in fact the petition. But in the meantime, let's scrutinize that. Just briefly, what were the reasons Mr. Kurang felt he needed to write a petition? Do you recall?
Not all of them. In fact, not most of them. I can recall one or two.
Go ahead.
Among Mr. Kurang's allegations against Council, Bensouda was that council was interested in stopping the sales of the tractors because she was now I'm recollecting from the contents, so
Sure, sure.
I'm using my words loosely here.
That's all right. But Committee Secretary, let's look at AMK 5. Please proceed.
Well, since we have found it now, I think for accuracy, let's look at it rather than me
That's all right.
taking the risk of using words that may not be appropriate.
Once you have had a chance to look at it, please confirm if that's indeed the document.
I cannot confirm if this is indeed the document. It's not signed, but it's what I have been giving here. I don't recall what the document looked like at the time.
That's all right. Just identify the document. I can tell you that this document is from Mr. Alhaji Mamadi Kurang.
Council, you can use my copy.
That's fine. Yeah. Whether it's signed or not, it has been admitted as evidence and by the respective witnesses, and all the submissions are now official evidence, and we can rely on them. So.
What would you like me to do, Council?
Confirm whether that's the...
I cannot confirm, but let's assume that it is the document that I am giving. What do you want me to do with the document? I don't recall the contents.
Well, my question was, what were the reasons
Yes.
Mr. Kurang...
If you tell me this is the document, I mean, it's clearly the one that I recall seeing is signed, and it was copied to a number of people, so I'm not sure why a signed copy was not produced. This is CC to the President, to the Chairman and Commissioners, to me, the Attorney General, to the Solicitor General, to file, and Mr. Kurang's own copy. So there must be a few copies around.
We have several copies of this particular
All
document,
signed?
but yes, this
Okay.
is the most convenient act now
Okay.
for the continuity of these particular proceedings. But be rest
Okay.
assured, the team is looking for other versions of the document.
No, it's fine, except that you're asking me to confirm, and I cannot confirm.
All right, perhaps then let's rely on your recollection.
I have a signed one.
Is that AMK or SC?
I found
We have four submissions of this document.
Anyway, it doesn't matter, because either way, I hesitate to confirm what is not mine.
I believe it's Secretary to Cabinet. What's the folio number?
Can you show that to me? Okay.
Can you confirm that that's the petition?
You're asking me to confirm whether this is the petition. This is certainly a signed version of the petition, but I Let's assume it is.
Okay.
Let's assume it is.
Do you recall what the reasons for the petition were and what the petition sought to achieve?
Well, the petition makes a number of allegations, factual allegations against lead counsel. And from what I am seeing now, it actually even questions the professionalism of lead counsel by making allegations of selective questioning of witnesses and you know, a lot of other things. So but there are a number of allegations in the petition.
All right. Were the allegations substantiated by Mr. Kurang?
As far as I was concerned, no.
And why do you say that?
Because I had a meeting with Mr. and asked if he could provide evidence of the allegations he has made against lead counsel.
Where was this meeting held?
In my office.
You summoned, no, well, let me not use the word summon.
I invited him
to your office.
Yes.
And asked and
asked if he could substantiate the allegations he made.
Okay. And what was the result of that?
Well, he told me clearly that he he's the one who was involved. He knows the facts, and he couldn't produce anything beyond what he was saying.
Okay. Well, not to speak to the other issues in detail, because I am aware that lead counsel Ms. Bensouda has not been before this committee, so we cannot establish a lot of the grounds here on this petition as fact. But I would like you to look at the portion that talks about selective questioning of witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Can we read that portion together?
It reads, I have written to you several memos of the Commissioner's wish to call material witnesses on material issues. You have been requested to recall Social Security on the status of their properties, and now it seems you have given it a deaf ear. All indications are that you are completely conflicted in most aspects of the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation asset dealings. It would seem apparent to me, and looking at the attachments here, that investigations into dealings of ex-president and public corporations cannot be objectively completed while you remain in charge. Gampet, Social Security and Housing Finance, NAWEC, GAMTEL, and MSA Crude Oil, etc. are critical national interests that you are clearly conflicted in a way that is fatally dangerous to Commission's mandate.
You see, I do not wish to belabor on the issue of conflict and the issue of terms of reference, but like I said earlier, they keep haunting us in the course of our investigation.
I don't understand. Just because allegations of conflict are made does not mean they exist.
All right. And I would agree for most of the petition, and that's why I don't wish to tread on that line. Perhaps the members can engage you on that. But when you look at the institutions named here, let's zero into Social Security. I believe that is the first concern I showed with regards to the conflict of interest.
Yep.
And here is Mr. Alhaji Mamadi Kurang, the secretary to the commission, raising the same concern.
Yes.
Mid-stride into the committee's dealings.
And that concern was addressed sufficiently by Ms. Bensouda's recusal.
Was that the same for the other institutions?
Was there evidence that Ms. Bensouda had dealings, as I said yesterday, in the form of a long-term retainership with all these other institutions, or were they ad hoc? I don't know.
And
But the
also,
fact remains, it wasn't substantiated. That's the point.
that's a good point. But I would also make another point to say that this conflict was foreseen from the beginning. And it caused fracas.
I think we dealt with this
Yes, we did.
exhaustively yesterday, and my
Indeed.
point remains. From my experience, you deal with conflict on a case-by-case basis when it arises or when it potentially may arise, and that's the point when you deal with the conflict. And I gave the example of you being on a panel where there are many applicants for a job, including your wife. You don't recuse yourself right from the start. You recuse yourself from preside or from being involved in the process with respect to your wife only. But that doesn't stop you from dealing with the other applicants. That was just to simplify the issue of conflict, because it's not just you here I'm talking to.
I understand.
The public don't understand how conflict works in this country. Once they see conflict, they think the entire process is tainted, and that's not really the case.
I understand, and it is true that conflict should be dealt with as it arises. But we had a divergence in opinion or in view as to when the conflict arose, and also looking at the fact that the government intended this to be a transparent, trusted commission. I'm not saying it wasn't, but such an issue can be a threat to that.
And that's why it was dealt with transparently as well.
But it could have been dealt with much earlier, because it was known to all parties much earlier.
But I don't, when you say it could have been dealt with much earlier, it could only be dealt with when it arose. They were dealing with other state-owned enterprises.
But it arose from the beginning. That's my point.
No, the commission was not. The commission did not start with Social Security.
But the commission, they would deal with Social Security.
And when they got to
And
Social Security,
just like the scenario with my wife, I said, here you have my beautiful wife and 4 others, right? Of course, if I am to recuse myself in the session with my beautiful wife, I would still be prejudiced. I could still take that prejudice to the other candidates,
well, that's not how conflict works in my experience.
Okay.
The conflict is case specific, and it's dealt with as it arises, or potentially the risk of it arising.
That's fine. But back to the petition, I can say for at least for Social Security, that was substantiated.
Yes, and that was dealt with. That's why Ms. Bensouda recused herself, and I appointed Musa Bachili to step in as counsel for that duration and that issue.
Honorable Chair, I noticed that your mic is on. Did you want my attention? Good. All right. You said it was dealt with.
Indeed.
Of course, the committee would contend with you that it was dealt with. Although it's better late than never, I would say, but it was not dealt with when it arose.
No, it only arose when it was time for the commission to probe into Social Security.
The conflict existed because the commission knew it would probe into Social Security.
Yes, but there were other state-owned enterprises that the commission was also probing, which had nothing to do with lead counsel.
True.
So there's nothing stopping her from being involved in the probe of those state-owned enterprises.
True. If you want to split the work in that way, yes.
But it is split in that way. Social Security is different from the other state-owned enterprises.
True. But then council advises the commission as a whole on the exercise as a whole.
Except when it comes to matters where she may be potentially conflicted, which is what occurred in this case, and she stepped aside.
Yes, but that conflict arose much early on. I don't wish we're not going to agree on this.
I don't think we will ever agree on
Yes,
this one.
we are not going to agree on this. So perhaps we can just put it to bed. But perhaps what we can do is go through each issue limb by limb,
Okay.
and just have a short discussion on it. The first one was interference with the commission's orders. What did you understand by that? I mean, instead of,
I can't recall, so I have to read through. It's been a
would
number
you
of
would you
years.
want to read aloud, or do you want us to give you a second to read?
If we take that approach, Council, we are going to spend some time on this petition and the response. And
Well, the issues that we're dealing with now are definitely pertinent issues, and we will spend time.
okay, because to be honest, I obviously I defer to you. You're the one in the driving seat here, but I don't see the criticality. Let me use that word. The criticality of the allegations that are made here. We all know there were allegations made. If you are interested in any one of the allegations and want to make a point, please be my guest. Let me know. Draw my
I
attention.
believe I've made
to
my
it.
point already. What I intend to do now is to let the record reflect the limbs of Mr. Alhaji Muhammad Kurang.
But if the evidence, if the documents are part of the record, then you don't need to read it out loud for it to be part of the record.
True.
I am assuming this is,
However, this
already-
is a public hearing,
yes.
and the record extends beyond what is in custody of the committee.
But this was published at the time. I'm not sure if you know that. The petition was published in newspapers and on social media.
We're not aware of that.
Oh yes, absolutely.
but thank you.
It was published, and yeah.
Thank you for enlightening us. But for those people like myself who were not aware of the publication,
Who were not in the country.
exactly, so that there are Gambians in the diaspora who are interested in these proceedings.
They are more informed than we are here. Believe me. In fact, they are too informed.
I wouldn't argue with you on that. And, yeah, but anyway, let's still. I still insist that we go through
Okay.
each limb. You don't need to read it out loud, but let's go through each limb,
Okay.
each issue. We can say something brief about it, and then we move on, and then proceed to lead council's response.
So you want me to go through it quietly, and then we can, because I thought you wanted the point is for the public.
All right. So, yes.
So what
The
do you want me
first,
to
the
do?
first limb was interference with the commission's orders. Just
Yes.
give us a rundown of what Mr. Kurang suggested here.
I'd rather stick to the words that Mr. Kurang uses, so that Mr. Kurang will not have me on Facebook tonight. So can I read what Mr. Kurang said?
It seems like I missed the joke. Fair enough. Let's use Mr. Kurang's words.
Thank you. Point 1. Interference with the Commission's orders. One cannot fail to notice that you have been putting a spanner in the works of the Commission. Your role in the livestock and vehicles orders have left much to be desired. In a visit to the offices of the Finance Ministry, I was accompanied by your junior counsel, Mr. Ibrahim Koli, and Fatu Drame MOJ. We were told by the permanent secretary that Amadou Sane's attempt to sell vehicles belonging to the ex-president was preceded by constant communication between you and Honorable Sane. I was totally shocked to hear that the lead counsel of all people, who told me in black and white that she had no knowledge about the Ministry of, was actually in touch with the Minister Amadou Sane to frustrate the Commission's order. With the tractors, your actions in the past few days suggest explicitly and implicitly that you have been orchestrating political interference in frustrating the tractor sales. It does not tally well that the string. I'm actually reading verbatim, so if there's a grammatical error, just bear with me because I don't want to misquote. That you have been orchestrating political interference in frustrating the tractor sales, it does not tally well that the strange and dubious instructions are coming from the office of the Secretary General, who is your brother, supporting your nuances and dispositions. For the livestock, your complete silence after the sales fiasco is inconsistent with your aggressive pursuit of intervention prior to the fiasco.
This was not substantiated in your.
How? No, it was not.
There was also the issue of interference and manipulation of the commission budget. I would ask whether it was substantiated or not.
I would encourage you to use allegations of XXX. But yes, they remain unsubstantiated as at the time I met with Mr. Kwan.
What about the allegation that the Ami Bensouda and Co law firm competing with the commission?
In what way?
Well, the text is there. We can read it for content.
You want me to read?
Yes, we can. This one is short.
I read. Paragraph 4 of the petition. You have decided to identify and recommend for the receivership of assets owned by Social Security and Janneh Foundation for Peace to PROM, while your law firm is making moves that financially disadvantage the Commission's receiverships. If you are representing other parties in helping them recover Janneh's landed assets such as Future Lake Building, etc., you ought to have known that the interests of the clients of your law firm will naturally conflict with the interests of the taxpayer and possibly affect the investigations or provide you a disproportionate advantage that you could possibly use to the advantage of clients other than the Commission or MOJ and the receiver. Considering that landed properties and not cattle or tractors is best option to recover money from ex-president's financial dealings, your legal representations could potentially become injurious to the public interest in recovering money from Janneh.
Do you believe that that was substantiated?
It was neither substantiated nor did it amount to conflict in my personal view.
I will not use that opportunity to go through that door again. So we can move to the next issue. Your connection to witnesses is compromised. And I believe he was referring to Mohammed Bazi and Badi Mazeji.
You want me to read that as well?
Not quite.
Okay.
And the last one was professional judgment. You can read professional judgment and conclude with that.
It's better for
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay, on the allegations of connections to witnesses is compromising, I read, as you cross-examine Mohammed Bazi and Fadi Mazegi, you certainly would not say that you and your firm have not benefited from their financial adventures directly or indirectly. You are surely in possession of materials I personally handed to you that show key members of their legal team, Farage and Andrews, participating in helping Janneh misappropriate property to his family and children. Your cross-examination of such personnel is at best a joke and worst an offense to the taxpayer. Have your list of close associates been exhausted then? In the ping-pong of list of asset declarations, you have defended people purportedly on neutral grounds. What the attachments here show is that what was projected to be neutral might actually smell of collusion and vested interest in transfer and disposal of AU villas. No matter how you analyze it, the public interest cannot be guaranteed while you control the investigation into these matters?
You mentioned that it was not substantiated.
Not to me until the time I left.
But I would like to just point out one thing. You see, public perception, which was a key consideration of yours, is important. And not only public perception, but in the context of the commission, the perception of the working elements of the commission matter. Here is a secretary who has some distrust in the legal team, or rather the lead counsel, which in my view, in my humble view, could have been mitigated. Now, the allegations put in Mr. Kurang's petition, especially in this portion, I would perhaps say could have benefited from better language and context. We need to understand a few things. I would refuse to believe that the lead counsel would drop the ball on a witness. But I can understand Mr. Kurang's frustration, because these things could have been mitigated. The conflict again arose early on, and to say that you will firefight it when it arises proper, when the commission was going to deal with it, was for me a mistake.
Counsel,
Please go ahead.
just because Mr. Kurang imagines a conflict does not mean there is a conflict. And as counsel, I'm sure you know that allegations have to be substantiated. It's the minimum.
Indeed.
And without substantiation, you can't take action on mere allegations. And up to this point, these were just mere allegations.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly, except for you mentioned something. It startled me a bit. I forgot. Let me.
Allegations need to be substantiated.
Not that in your preamble that Mr. Kurang imagined the conflict. Now I want to shift to defend Mr. Kurang, because in all honesty, he did not imagine the conflict. The conflict existed. The conflict was not dealt with from the appointment stage. It was dealt with when it arose. And it was dealt with, to be fair to the commission and to Ms. Bensouda, in a very appropriate manner. But to the government, that could have been foreseen. And there was a need to preserve the perception,
But you
not
see,
only the external perception, but the internal perception as well. And I think that's where the government failed.
but counsel, if I recall correctly, your position consistently has been conflict existed from day one with respect to social security.
Indeed.
This part is not about social security. This part is talking about Mohamed Bazi and Fadi Mazegi.
Oh,
So
I'm not
I don't-
weighing in this part. If you can recall, what I said was, I would be skeptical to weigh in on the other issues. But when it comes to issue 3,
But you did ask me whether you asked me to comment on this paragraph after reading it.
yes, I
So
did.
my response is tailored specifically to this paragraph about it not being substantiated.
Yes, and my question is hinged on the 3rd paragraph, even though it has a nexus to the second issue, but it's hinged on the 3rd issue. That perception is important, and even though we would better understand it as legal personnel, and I said I would be shocked, and I would not want to think that learned senior counsel Mrs. Bensouda would drop the ball on a witness. But I can understand Mr. Kurang's frustrations.
You know why I don't mind us going over this conflict thing? Because you see, I'm sorry to say this, and it's not being said in any condescending way. But even amongst our colleagues at the bar, the level of understanding about conflict is not too great, and that's not for lack of intellect, etc. It's just that conflict is not, issues of conflict is not commonly canvassed in this jurisdiction, as far as I recall. And so many people don't understand what conflict means, how it arises, if it arises, how it is resolved. And it's even worse amongst the amongst non-lawyers in our society. People run with the concept of conflict, and they say all kinds of things about conflict. I don't even understand what it means. And so I am using this opportunity to help share information about issues of conflict. But particularly the fact that just because there is conflict, even if it exists, in fact, it does not taint an entire process. Because there are mechanisms, some are built-in systems to deal with conflict by virtue of being explicitly provided for, or implicitly when it arises as a practical mechanism of dealing with it. So just because somebody makes allegations of conflict, uses the word conflict, does not mean there is conflict. In this case here, Mr. Kurang has used the word conflict. It's not about defending Mr. Kurang or not. It's about whether the allegations are substantiated. And as far as I was concerned, there was no shred of evidence that was brought to me to substantiate the allegations here.
That is all the allegations?
Every one of them.
Okay. You know, I understand that take. I have a slight take on it, and I would agree with you. A lot of practitioners and non-practitioners are a bit hazy on the issue of conflict. I can assure you I will not be one of them. And I can assure you that I am hushed on the issue of conflict, and I've looked at it from every lens, and I've tried to be as fair to you and as fair to Mr. Kurang, and as fair to the committee as well in my work. You see, there's this famous judicial pronouncement of the House of Lords that I love. It's Carter versus Bradbeer, and Lord Diplock had stated that words mean whatever they mean to the majority of the members in the appellate committee. And I can even go on to say, and I know Ms. Janneh Salah would agree with me wherever she is, that whatever the majority of the public says a word means is what it's understood to be. Now, I say that to say that one of your key considerations was public perception. And you understand that Gambians have a problem with conflict of interest, and they don't understand it. Perhaps the prudent thing to have done was to bring everything to Gambian standards with respect to that issue. Because public perception needed to be bought. And the only way it could be bought is if the public are on the bandwagon to agree that the process was transparent.
So in other words, if I get you correctly, you wanted us to redefine conflict to meet the understanding of ordinary Gambians.
I am taking cue from where you left off, but in my view, conflict is properly defined. In my view, from the date of appointment, the conflict arose, and there was a conflict of interest. How it was dealt with, in fact, it wasn't dealt with at the time. So I'm not saying that conflict should be redefined. I'm saying that if that is the case, that Gambians do not understand conflict. Not only Gambians, but even professionals who ought to know the nitty-gritties around conflict do not understand it.